Without instructions, we are left to make assumptions as to how Yah wants us to perform our calling. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 5, final day of Bamidbar. So let's go to chapter number 4 and read the first several verses. From there we read, And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying, Take a census of the sons of Kohath from among the children of Levi, by their clans, by their father's house. From 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, all who enter the service to do the work in the tent of appointment. So these sons of Kohath, they are assigned the specific duty of transporting all of the furnishings that are associated with the Mishkan or the tabernacle. Theirs is an exact duty. They only can perform their tasks according to guidelines and protocols. They are not even allowed to approach these furnishings until they have been covered first. More on that at the end. So we find then that their specific duty requires training. There is an instance that is found in the reign of King David. It starts early on after the fall of Levi's sons, Hophni and Pinchas. The army of Israel has been defeated. The Philistines rout them, and then also they capture the ark. Not knowing what to properly do in regards to the ark, they end up suffering greatly by the wrath of Elohim. And they determined then the best thing for them to do is to send the ark back to Israel with an atonement offering and be rid of this abusive presence of the Elohim of Israel in their midst. As the story unfolds, they put it on an ox cart and they send it with 2 milk cows, lowing as they go back to the land of Israel. It stops off at Bet Shemesh. There it is abusive. Men die in great number because of trying to look into the ark. Not a wise decision. And in desperation, they called for the men of Kiryat Yearim to come to get this ark and to take it to their territory. Now, who are these people? This town is located along the borderline of Yehuda and Benjamin. And it would appear then that this is the township of Shaul, who would become king. This is where the sons of Kish tend to live, and among these small towns that are grouped together. It finds lodging in the place called the house of Abinadab. King Shaul happens to have a son by the name of Abinadab, and this is their hometown. It is in some places reasoned then that the house of Abinadab is a royal house, the house of the son of King Shaul, and then Abinadab assigns his eldest son, Eleazar, to guard over the ark and to protect it. Favor seems to come, and rest seems to come. 13 years later, King Shaul is slain on the battlefield. King David Hamelech, takes the throne. And for 7 years, he reigns in Hebron before he is made ruler over all Israel. Once obtaining that position, his heart yearns to have the Ark of the Covenant in Jerusalem in its proper place. And so he sends. Now, as we look then, it appears that the people, instead of properly carrying the ark by design, by the poles with tapestry coverings over it, at the hands of Kohathites, whose responsibility and instructed duty it is to carry this, they nevertheless continue its journey on an ox cart pulled by oxen, with the sons of Abinadab, including Uzzah, walking beside it. Without instructions, we are left to assumptions, as it would have to be the oxen stumble, the cart lurches, it would appear that the ark is going to hit the ground. Uzzah sticks out his hands to try to steady it. Instantly, he dies. If he had been a Kohathite and given the assignment of accompanying the ark, he would have been in training for 30 years as to how to perform his duty. 3 decades. Before day one on the job, he is given 30 years from birth to the age of 30 as to how to perform his duties. You and I perhaps come from a denominational background where some individual, like myself in those days, discerns that they have heard the call of God to preach. Hallelujah. And by some means, then, we are affirmed in that calling, recognize, well, that's true. We can see that calling on you. And we are offered then the pulpit to stand and to proclaim the word. Now, some denominations require before your first sermon that there has to be some manner of study, some years of preparation, some seminary training, etc. But I can tell you from personal experience, if God's called you to preach, boy, get that word and pray and let him give you a message. At some point, you learn by trial and error. Sometimes there's conversations between you and a pastor trying to straighten you out on a few things that you were preaching the other night. As the process will go on, you're either proven to be valid in your calling or invalid. Without training and instructions, we are left to assumptions. I have to ask the question, do we make assumptions then about the Torah? I think many times we do. Do we not also make assumptions about approaching his presence, the Shekinah of Yahweh? I know that we do. As we approach the nearing days of Shavuot, we're at this point approaching the 10th day from Shavuot. We are almost there. This is about the restoration of the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah. In Ezekiel's graveyard vision, these men of Ephraim stand filled with the Ruach HaKodesh and become a mighty army. We need the power and the visitation of the Ruach HaKodesh upon us. But if we're making assumptions, we may be inviting this vision to take place, even to our own detriment. Let's not walk in assumption. Let's also understand that when the Ark of the Covenant is going to be moved to another location, the sons of Aaron, the Kohanim, are to come in and to cover the ark with a veil, then a layer of leather, and then all of the blue covering before inserting the poles. So there are at least 3 layers of tapestries that are laid upon the ark, which is solid gold, which is already heavy. These poles that are inserted into the rings, the weight of this should have snapped the rings off or broken the poles or both. 4 men should not be able to pick this up. But they did. They went in, they reached out their hand to the poles, not to the ark. The presence of Yah is not to be manhandled. The Ruach HaKodesh is not to be manipulated and controlled, but rather according to the gifting of the poles, we lift them up and we transport them. And the rabbis say, more than the ark being carried by these men. these men were carried by the ark. Oh, may this Shabbat be a carrying of his presence upon you. Shabbat Shalom.